These places were never meant to be found, and the people who discovered them wish they never did. What started as simple exploration turned into something far more disturbing, because some doors inside these mansions were never meant to be opened. If you think you've seen everything about abandoned mansions, trust me, you haven't. What you're about to hear isn't just creepy, it feels real. Hidden rooms, unexplained sounds, and moments that don't make sense. Watch till the end, because each story gets darker and harder to forget. 1. Story: Winchester Mystery House. I didn't expect anything real to happen the night I visited the Winchester Mystery House. Honestly, I went there thinking it was just another overhyped haunted place. Old house, strange design, creepy stories, that's it. But something about that night stayed with me longer than I wanted. It was an evening tour, not too crowded, maybe 10, 12 people in the group. The sun had already set, and the house looked different in the dark. From the outside, it felt quiet, too quiet for such a massive place. The guide welcomed us and started explaining how Sarah Winchester kept building the mansion non-stop, believing spirits were after her. I listened, but I didn't fully believe it. As we stepped inside, the air felt heavier, not colder at first, just still, like the house was holding its breath. We walked through narrow hallways and oddly shaped rooms. Some stairs led to ceilings, and some doors opened into walls. It was confusing, but also interesting. I kept observing everything, trying to understand how someone could design a house like this. But slowly, that curiosity started turning into discomfort. The deeper we went, the more isolated it felt. At one point, we entered a long corridor with multiple doors on both sides. The guide stopped and told us this part of the house was known for unusual experiences. I remember a few people laughing quietly, including me. It felt like part of the show. But then, something small happened. A door at the end of the hallway moved. Not wide open, just a slight shift, like someone had pushed it from the other side. The guide didn't react. No one else seemed to notice, or maybe they thought it was nothing. I tried to ignore it too, telling myself it was just air pressure or an old hinge. We moved forward. As we passed that same door, I slowed down without realizing it. I looked at the handle. It was slightly shaking. Not violently, just a light, slow movement. That's when I felt it. The temperature dropped suddenly around me. Not the whole hallway, just around that spot. I stepped back instantly. No one else reacted. I didn't say anything. I just walked ahead and caught up with the group, trying to act normal. But inside, something didn't feel right anymore. The house didn't feel like a structure. It felt aware. We went upstairs after that. The stairs were narrow, almost uncomfortable to walk on. As I reached the top, I clearly heard a sound behind me, a soft footstep. I turned around immediately. No one was there. The last person in our group was still a few steps below. There was no way someone could have been that close behind me. I stared at the staircase for a few seconds, waiting to hear it again. And then I did. Another step. Slow, deliberate, like someone was following but staying just out of sight. I didn't wait this time. I moved quickly and joined the group at the top. My heart was beating faster now, and I could feel my hands getting cold. The guide continued talking, but I wasn't listening anymore. Then came the moment that I still can't explain. We entered a small room with only one window. The guide said we would stay there for a minute before moving on. As everyone spread out, I stood near the wall, trying to calm myself. That's when I heard a whisper. Very faint, but close. Not from across the room, not from outside. Right next to my ear. I froze. I didn't understand the words. It wasn't clear, but it sounded like someone trying to say something quietly, urgently. I turned my head fast. There was no one. Everyone in the room was at least a few feet away from me. No one was close enough to whisper like that. I stepped away from the wall immediately. My breathing got heavier, and for the first time that night, I actually felt scared. Not curious, not excited, just scared. When the tour ended, I didn't rush out. I waited near the exit and asked the guide something simple. I said, "Do people ever hear things here, like whispers?" He looked at me for a second, not surprised, not confused, just calm. Then he said, "More often than you'd think." I didn't ask anything else. I walked out of that house and into the night air, expecting to feel relief, but I didn't. Even outside, I had this strange feeling, like something had followed me to the door. I never went back. And even now, when I think about that whisper, I still can't explain one thing. It didn't feel like the house was empty.
Two-story Linwood Hall. I had seen pictures of Linwood Hall before, but nothing prepared me for what it actually felt like standing in front of it. The place didn't look just abandoned, it looked forgotten, like time had slowly erased it from the world but left the structure behind. It was late afternoon when I got there, and the sky was already turning gray. I wasn't alone at first. A friend came with me, but he stayed near the entrance, too nervous to go deeper. I didn't blame him. Even from outside, the mansion gave off a strange energy. The windows were broken, the walls stained, and the silence around it felt unnatural. I stepped inside carefully. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Dust, damp wood, and something else, something older. The floor creaked under every step, and the sound echoed through the empty halls. It didn't take long before I realized how massive the place was. Room after room, all empty, yet it felt like I wasn't alone. At first, I kept telling myself it was just my mind reacting to the environment, but then small things started happening. I was walking through what looked like a large hallway when I noticed a door at the end slightly open. It wasn't unusual. Almost every door there was broken or hanging loose, but this one felt different. I don't know why, but I felt drawn to it. As I got closer, I realized something strange. The door was moving. Not swinging wildly, just a slow, steady motion, like someone was gently pushing it from the inside. I stopped walking.
My first thought was wind. It had to be wind. But there were no open windows nearby, and the air inside felt completely still. I stood there for a few seconds, watching it move. Then it stopped, completely still. I waited, trying to hear something, anything. And that's when I heard a faint sound from inside the room. It wasn't clear, but it sounded like something dragging across the floor. I shouldn't have gone closer, but I did. I pushed the door open slowly, my hand shaking more than I expected. The room inside was empty. No furniture, no movement, nothing. Just broken walls and a cracked floor. But the sound had stopped the moment I touched the door. I stepped inside, looking around carefully. My heart was beating faster now, and I could feel that same heavy silence pressing against me. I walked a few steps forward, and then I heard it again, behind me. I turned around quickly. The door was closing, slowly, on its own. I rushed back and grabbed it before it shut completely. I stood there for a second, holding it, trying to understand what just happened. My mind kept searching for a logical reason, but nothing made sense anymore. I decided to leave that room immediately. As I stepped back into the hallway, something changed. The air felt colder. Not just slightly, noticeably colder. I could even see my breath faintly, which didn't make sense because it wasn't that cold outside. That's when I heard footsteps. Not mine. Clear, slow footsteps coming from the upper floor. I froze. My friend was still outside. There was no one else supposed to be there. I listened carefully, hoping it would stop. But it didn't. Step, pause, step, pause, like someone walking directly above me. I looked up at the ceiling, trying to follow the sound. It moved slowly across, then stopped right above where I was standing. The silence that followed was worse than the sound.
I didn't wait any longer. I walked quickly toward the exit, trying not to run but feeling like I needed to. Every step I took echoed loudly, and for a moment I thought I heard another set of footsteps matching mine, just slightly delayed. When I finally stepped outside, the air felt normal again. My friend looked at me and immediately asked, "What happened to you?" I didn't answer right away. I just turned back and looked at the mansion. All the windows were dark, completely still, like nothing had ever moved inside. But I knew what I heard, and I'm sure of one thing. I wasn't the only one inside that day.
3-story Poveglia Island.
I didn't plan to go to Poveglia Island alone, but that's how it ended up. Everyone I talked to in Venice warned me about it. Some laughed it off, others just told me not to go. Boats don't officially take people there, and locals avoid even talking about it too much, but that only made me more curious. I found a small private boat willing to drop me near the island, but the man refused to wait. He told me clearly, "I come back after 1 hour. If you are not here, I leave." At the time, it sounded dramatic. I agreed anyway. As soon as I stepped onto the island, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Not normal silence, the kind that feels heavy, like the air itself is watching you. The buildings were broken, covered in plants, and the ground felt uneven under my feet. I could see the old structures in the distance, the remains of what used to be a hospital. I started walking toward it slowly. Every step felt louder than it should have. Leaves crunching, small stones shifting, everything echoed in a way that made me feel exposed. I kept looking around, expecting to see someone, but there was no one. At least, that's what I thought. As I got closer to the main building, I noticed something strange. One of the upper windows looked darker than the others. Not just shadow, it felt like something was behind it, watching. I stopped walking.
I stared at that window for a few seconds, trying to understand what I was seeing. But the more I looked, the more uncomfortable I felt. It wasn't movement, it was presence. I forced myself to keep going. Inside the building, the air changed immediately. It was colder, and the smell hit me hard. Rot, dampness, and something metallic. The walls were cracked, paint peeling everywhere, and long hallways stretched into darkness. I walked into one of the corridors, my footsteps echoing behind me. Then I heard another step, not mine. I stopped instantly. Silence. I took another step forward, and again, a second step followed, slightly delayed. My chest tightened. I turned around quickly, but there was nothing there, just the empty hallway behind me. I told myself it was just the echo. It had to be, but it didn't feel like an echo. I moved faster now, trying to reach the center of the building. I came across a staircase leading up. It looked unstable, but still usable. I hesitated for a moment, then started climbing. Halfway up, I heard something from above, a faint whisper. I froze. It wasn't wind. It wasn't distant noise. It sounded close, too close. I held my breath and listened. The whisper came again.
Soft, unclear, like someone trying to speak but not fully able to. My body reacted before my mind did.
I started climbing faster, almost without thinking. I reached the top and looked around quickly. Nothing, just empty rooms and broken walls. But the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it got stronger. I stepped into one of the rooms, trying to calm myself down. That's when I noticed the floor. It was covered in dust, but there were marks on it. Footprints. Not clear, not fresh, but visible enough to see a path across the room. I followed them slowly with my eyes. They didn't lead to the door. They led to the wall and stopped there. I felt a chill run through my entire body. Before I could react, I heard a loud noise behind me. A door slammed shut somewhere down the hallway. The sound echoed violently through the building. That was it. I didn't think anymore. I turned and ran. I didn't care where I was stepping or what I was hitting. I just needed to get out. As I ran down the stairs, I could hear something behind me again. Not footsteps this time. Faster. Closer. I didn't look back. I reached the outside and kept moving until I saw the shore. The boat was already there, the man waiting, looking impatient. I jumped in without saying a word. As the boat started moving away, I looked back at the island one last time. The building stood still, silent, but that same window I noticed earlier, it didn't feel empty anymore. Even now, I can't explain what I experienced there. But one thing is clear. That island doesn't feel abandoned. It feels occupied.